Here I come. Hello, sports fans, sports collectors, and all hobbyists. Welcome to the Car King Sports and Variety Show. I am your host, the Catman, Brian Cataquet, a.k.a. the Car King. We are live on ABC's KMET 1490 AM.com, your number one spot right here for news and talk on the West Coast. I thank everyone for tuning in this morning. On the telephone line, and welcome to the program, a former Major League Baseball player who pitched for the 1993-94 Texas Rangers, and the pitcher who famously relieved the great Nolan Ryan in Ryan's final MLB appearance. I welcome to the program, Steve Dreyer. Steve, great to have you. A pleasure.
Thank you so much, Brian. I don't know if famously is the right word for that, though.
Well, I mean, your name is definitely cemented in baseball history with that game. So, I consider it famously.
All right. I'll take that. I'll take anything I can get. I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Absolutely. And Steve, 8 years you spent in professional baseball, 7 with Texas, and 1 year with the Twins organization. So I figure let's go back summer of 1990, big year for you, selected 8th round by the Rangers. Take us back, if you can, to that memorable time when you first heard of the news, you were going to the Rangers, and your reaction to it.
It was a really interesting path for me initially. When I went to college, I went to Northern Iowa. They don't even have a baseball program anymore. And when I was there, the program was really struggling. And coming out of high school, I was a decent player on a very good high school team. And so when I went to Northern Iowa to play, I just walked on. I hoped to pitch a little bit, maybe play a little bit of infield, and because the program honestly was struggling, I made the team. If I had tried to go to another program, either in the state or somewhere else, it probably wouldn't have happened. So thankfully, I started my career at UNI and was just kind of thrown into the fire, and my statistics, I'm sure they're out there somewhere, were terrible. At UNI, I think my ERA was over 12 as a freshman, and so slowly I got a little bit better in my 3 years there, and we did have the good fortune of playing against some really good quality D1 opponents, Oklahoma State, Wichita State, Creighton, a lot of really strong programs, and there would be scouts there watching those other teams. They were not there to watch me. They were not there to watch UNI Panthers. But when I would pitch against them, I did okay. I held my own in there and showed a couple decent attributes that I think some big league teams liked. And so then they had a little bit of an interest in me my junior year. And I did end up getting quick phone calls from a lot of major league teams, but the Rangers seemed to be the most interested, and again, to me, it was never part of my reality or even a possibility that I might have a chance to play professionally. So I had no idea how to go about it. I didn't know who to talk to. It was a really strange situation, and I can remember being at home and waiting throughout that first day of the draft. And I didn't get a call. Finally, late in the afternoon, about 4:30, the scout from the Rangers gave me a call and said they drafted me in the 8th round. So it was a real shock, the whole process, and I was just thankful to have the opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, that is amazing. And, reading a little bit about your career, I heard you say once, or I may have read it in an article, that you weren't really an athletic-looking player during your high school years. Was that fair to say?
Oh, I think that's very fair to say. I was, I was what you would call a late bloomer. I really didn't start growing physically until I got to college, really. So in high school, I was a pretty good pitcher, and I played at a fairly large school here in Iowa at Ames High School, where Iowa State University is, and I was probably the 4th string pitcher. We had another pitcher who pitched at Oklahoma and ended up getting drafted and played a little bit in the big leagues with Pittsburgh and Tampa Bay. His name was Matt Rubel. Another pitcher better than I was Freddie Hoiberg's big brother, Steve. So I was just kind of down the list a ways, and so I was not heavily recruited. Once I got to college was when, physically I kind of grew enough to throw the ball a little bit harder and have a little bit more command with my mechanics.
And we're talking with Steve Dreyer, pitcher for the Texas Rangers, 1993 to 94. He's with us on the telephone line. And Steve, so your first stop in professional baseball, I believe, was A-ball at Charlotte. Am I correct?
No, my first season was short season rookie ball in Butte, Montana, Pioneer League.
Okay. So A-ball is where you played for Charlotte, which you posted a solid record, because I'm looking at your statistics. You went 11-7 for Charlotte, win-loss record with a 2.40 ERA, 111 strikeouts in 169 innings. So you performed very solidly that year.
Yeah, that was my second full season. My first full season was at low A ball in Gastonia, North Carolina, and I had a very similar season at low A as I did in Port Charlotte in high A. Quite a few innings, back when starting pitchers were expected to throw 6 or 7 innings, and I was able to do that, thankfully. And that year in Port Charlotte, like you mentioned, my walk rate went down. My ERA was pretty good, and so I was able to be pretty consistent that whole season. Yeah, and then the next year was when things really started happening.
Yeah, 111 strikeouts in 169 innings, and your record could have been much better if you had more run support from that team. So the first time you faced minor league hitting, was it challenging for you? How did you get mentally prepared the first time you faced minor league hitters?
It's really interesting when you're on this side of it, when you're on the field itself, because you can look at scouting reports, you can look at back in the day videotape or whatever resources you have to try to learn about what it is you need to do as a pitcher, but it really doesn't make much difference until you get out there and actually do it. And so when I was in professional baseball, even though it was the minor leagues, I remember pitching against players that I had seen play in the College World Series. And so my initial thought was, wow, these guys are pretty good. I need to be really thoughtful out on the mound. I need to really concentrate on what it is I'm trying to do. I did not throw 95 miles an hour, so I needed to be very good at other aspects of pitching. And when I did have some success against some of those pretty darn good players, I felt, you know what, I think I can do this.
And in 1993, you get promoted to AAA for playing for Oklahoma City. How did you find AAA ball?
Initially, I started that year in 93 at AA, and I was there for about a month, and I did well. I didn't think I was doing well enough to get called up to AAA, but I just didn't know any better back then. I didn't know what front office folks were talking about, and so when I did get promoted to AAA, I was shocked, and I was nervous, and here I was playing, with players like Steve Balboni was on my Oklahoma City team, and other players that had major league experience, and then facing hitters that just looked like, they were big league players to me. And again, it just made me become even more hyper-focused, and I was really concentrating on throwing quality pitches because I knew I couldn't blow it by anybody. And my first couple games at AAA were not great. I think I gave up a few runs, but then I went on a pretty decent stretch and just felt very confident out there and ended up having a lot of fun. It was a great group of guys. Bobby Jones was the manager, and the best manager I've ever had. And it was just a really good time, and I felt very comfortable as time went on.
You're right. That was 1993 Oklahoma City 89ers. Balboni was on the team. And also a guest we had on this show, Rob Ducey, was on that squad as well.
Oh, no kidding. He was wonderful. He was, he had some big league experience when I joined the team, and he was he was a mentor to me and the other young guys. He he was nice and laid back and a real comfortable guy, and I really enjoyed having him as a teammate.
Yeah, he's pretty cool. Now, Oklahoma City 93, you post a 4-6 record, 3 ERA, and then you get the call and you head up to the major league level with the Texas Rangers that same year. Your reaction to that move, were you proud of yourself? You're heading to the big leagues finally?
Well, there was no finally about it. It actually happened fairly quickly because just the year before I was at A-ball. And so in 93, I went from AA to AAA to the big leagues in just a matter of a few months. And so it was kind of a whirlwind. And again, even at AAA, I had a really nice stretch of a dozen games there where I did well. But again, I didn't know, what the major league club was looking for. And they actually had told my pitching coach at the time, Rick Knapp, another wonderful, wonderful guy, great coach. He told me one night, he said, hey, the big league club might be looking for another arm. If they don't make a trade for someone, he said, you will probably be the guy they call up. So he said, sit by your phone tonight. And, this was way before cell phones. So I literally sat next to my telephone in my apartment and no call, didn't get a call that night. And I go to the field the next day and I told one teammate about it, and I was kind of like, well, would have been nice, nice to think about. And then it was actually that night that they called in the dugout and told me that I was going up. So I can remember Bobby Jones calling me over in the dugout and putting his arm around me and just saying, kid, tomorrow you're going to make a lot of money. Get out of here. And I left, and it was just a crazy experience. Never forget it.
You're right. Let me rephrase that. It happened rapidly, the jump to the major leagues for you. So if everyone listening recalls that 1993 Texas Rangers team, it was led by manager Kevin Kennedy and had notable names on that squad like Kevin Brown, Jose Canseco was on the team, and of course Nolan Ryan. Any positive words you can say about those three players, Brown, Canseco, and of course Nolan Ryan?
Well, Canseco was he was in the clubhouse. He was kind of a soft-spoken guy, and he was very kind to me and the other young players. He kind of kept to himself for the most part, but he and I actually played a lot of ping pong together in the clubhouse, and so he was a really nice guy. And so I don't have anything negative to say about him as a teammate. Kevin Brown was a wonderful teammate. He was the first. Check that. He was the second player to come up to me and kind of introduce himself when I joined the team, and just watching him perform and the confidence that he had and the desire he had when he went out onto the mound was something that I really followed and watched closely. And he had some really, really good years in there, and so it was great having him as a teammate. Nolan Ryan, what can you say about that? He was the first player to come up to me in the clubhouse, and he put his hand out and said, Steve, Nolan Ryan, nice to have you here. And I thought, wow, that's pretty amazing. And when I was a little kid, I had sent him autograph requests, in the mail, things like that. So, and so being around him, it was intimidating. I'm not particularly a real extrovert, so to speak, and so I just kind of went about my business, and so I didn't follow him around or talk to him a lot. But when I did, he was so courteous, so helpful, offered advice with lineups, off-season workout plans, diets, things like that. Toward the end of the season, when it was his last season, of course, he even said, hey, if there's anything you'd like me to sign, just put it in my locker. I'd be happy to autograph it for you. So it could not have been a nicer guy, and I am so privileged to have had the opportunity to play with him for a few months there.
Man, so you really got Nolan Ryan's blessing right off the bat. That's pretty neat to know.
Oh yeah, and he was, and it was really amazing in the clubhouse. I mean, he was Nolan Ryan, but he was just he was just one of the guys. He people spoke to him normally. He spoke to people normally. It's he was just a teammate and was like I said, a real team leader just by what he was doing. He really led by example.
And how about the manager Kevin Kennedy? Good manager to play for?
You know, I didn't get to know him very well because I had not been at a major league spring training. When I did get called up, you know, it was kind of late in the year, and so there wasn't a whole lot of time to really get to know him. I do remember there was a lot of, he kind of kept to himself as well in the office quite a bit. But to me, again, I didn't judge one way or the other. I wouldn't necessarily consider that at the time good managing or poor managing. I listened to what he said. He led the team, and we did the best we could. So, and then, and so it didn't last very long with him. I didn't get to know him very well.
All right, Steve, I'm looking at a scorecard. I believe, if I'm correct, your first major league debut, it was a game in August, the Rangers versus Ken Griffey Jr.'s Mariners. You squared off facing Randy Johnson. Is that correct? Was that your first major league debut?
That is correct, August 8th.
I mean, unbelievable. So here you're facing off Randy Johnson, and then you're pitching again, to Ken Griffey Jr. What do you recall most about that first appearance?
I recall just about everything. It was an amazing day, and I can remember warming up in the bullpen, and my legs were shaking, and that was back at the old Arlington Stadium, where the bullpen was just right down the first base line, and the fans were right there, and the fans were yelling encouraging things to me and saying, hey, good luck. And so it was really exciting. And we were still in a pennant race, and it was Nolan's last year. And so we had some pretty big crowds there. And I go out there, my very first batter is Omar Vizquel,
Wow.
Pretty amazing player right there. And somehow I struck him out on 3 pitches. And it just, my legs stopped shaking at that point, and I took about 10 big, deep breaths, and I kind of settled in a little bit. But then the very next hitter was a guy named Dan Howett, and I promptly walked him, and now here's Ken Griffey Jr. And luckily I got him to pop up. So it was a real roller coaster of a game as far as base runners. I think I had at least 2 base runners on every inning of my 6 innings, but nobody scored. And Randy Johnson, fairly early in the game, gave up a home run to Juan Gonzalez and then hit Julio Franco with a pitch and got ejected from the game.
Oh, is that right?
There were just a lot. It was just a lot of crazy things happening in that game. But somehow I was able to wiggle free of a lot of trouble in that game, and we got the win.
Yeah, that's bizarre. I mean, that's a heck of a way to begin your Major League Baseball career. Talk about nerves, like you said. And you did very well. I'm looking at the scorecard I have. You shut the Mariners down. I'm looking 5 hits over 5 innings. You struck out 6 Mariners. So you performed very solidly that game.
Well, the stat you maybe very nicely forgot was I also walked 6. So
You did? Okay.
I did have, like I said, a lot of runners on base, but I was able to make some pretty good pitches at the right time. Got a couple key strikeouts. Pudge Rodriguez was the catcher, and having him back there it just gives you so much more confidence that I can throw pitches where they need to be, and he's gonna stop them. And so. I was able to make some decent pitches when I had to, and got lucky a few times too.
Yeah, and that was going to be my next question, Steve, about Pudge Rodriguez as a catcher. I mean, you obviously threw to a lot of catchers. What was different? Did you enjoy throwing to Pudge? What was different about Pudge as a catcher compared to your other previous catchers?
Pudge was the first catcher I threw to in the big leagues, and that was still pretty early in his career. And I don't think I would be the first person to say that early on his emphasis was more about hitting and throwing out base runners, and he was amazing at both. So calling a game, thankfully, I was given the permission, so to speak, to shake off if I wanted to. And so even though I shook him off occasionally, he accepted it and he went with it. And if there was something that he had received a pitch call from the dugout, he would just put it down a second time. So then I knew that it was coming from the bench. So then I wouldn't shake off after that. So, but like I said, he was very, very solid back there, very positive, gave me some great encouragement between innings, and it was great having him back there. And, I threw to other catchers as well. And, they all have their own styles, and whoever it is behind the plate, as a pitcher, you want to make sure you have that relationship to kind of trust each other and listen to each other and learn from each other. And he definitely did all of that with me.
Yeah, and, I have a few minutes left, so I want to get a couple more in. And coincidentally, Steve, the Mariners again comes to mind on that historic game with Nolan Ryan, where you come in relief for Ryan in his final game. Coming into relief for Ryan, did you have any inkling of, that this would be his final appearance?
Oh, not at all. It was really a bittersweet situation for me. And as far as Nolan and his career, it was really unfortunate. I mean, he hurt his arm there in the first inning, and I had been, primarily a starting pitcher. And so they brought me in early in the game. It was the first inning. And so they were hoping I could get some length, give a few innings. I don't know. I think I threw maybe another 4 innings or so. But going in that early in the game, I remember the announcers were saying the late arriving fans expecting to see Nolan Ryan out there didn't see him, and instead it was me that nobody had heard about, and for me to have an opportunity to pitch in the majors again, I'm very, very thankful for. The fact that I followed him up again, a little bit historic, I suppose, but because it was of an injury, I'm not real excited about that. But after the game, he was very, very gracious, and not knowing that was going to be his last game ever, everyone was hoping that he might be okay, but it just didn't end up working out for him.
Yeah, and it's amazing. The Mariners, again, come to mind. Your Major League debut was against the Mariners, and Ryan's final game was against the Mariners. Amazing, huh?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, now you something else that I didn't know, you pitched to George Brett in his final Major League Baseball game. Is that correct?
That is correct. It was the last game of the season in 1993 in Arlington, and Kansas City was in town. And again, it was amazing because they had a pregame ceremony for Nolan and for George Brett, because obviously they were going to be first ballot Hall of Famers in 5 years. And so then I started that game, and George Brett went 0 for 3 against me, and so I'm the last pitcher to ever get him out. He did hit in the 9th inning against Tom Henke and got a single. So his very last at bat ever, he got a hit. But I'm the last pitcher to ever get him out. But unfortunately, we lost the game, so that was kind of a bummer too.
I mean, unbelievable. So I'm reading something here. Dreyer was originally not scheduled to pitch that game, but he was called upon to start instead of Nolan Ryan. Is that what happened?
I just remember, I think by that time it was known that Nolan was not going to pitch again the rest of that season. So I think maybe if you had looked back several weeks and penciled Nolan in every 5 days, I'm sure they were going to try to line that up. But it wasn't really a last-minute thing. I can remember my pitching coach, Claude Osteen, walking in the clubhouse a few days prior to the last game and just pointing at me and saying, you got Sunday. So, it was a little bit of a surprise, but I knew it wasn't going to be Nolan.
Wow, Ryan and Brett, that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Now I try to dig this up. I couldn't find anything about Don Mattingly. Something was linked with you and Mattingly?
Oh yeah, very, very obscure. But we were at Yankee Stadium. This was '94, early in the season, and the Yankees were getting us pretty good early in the game, and so I came into the game, and I think Wade Boggs was on third base, and Don Mattingly was batting, and the infield was pulled in, and Mattingly hit a ground ball to second base, kind of a tough play. Our second baseman, Doug Strange, tried to make a throw home to get the runner at home, and he was safe at home. And so they credited Don Mattingly with an RBI, and it was his 1,000th career RBI.
Wow.
At Yankee
I mean,
Stadium,
another
yeah.
trivia fact on your resume that I did not know about. That's unbelievable. So I have like a minute left. So what are you doing with your career now?
I will still give some lessons to some local kids here every once in a while, some private pitching lessons. I teach elementary PE in Marshalltown, Iowa, and I love it there. Kids are wonderful, and now we're watching our son who's with the LA Dodgers and doing okay. So that's been fun every night to watch the Dodger games.
Wow. So listen, I really appreciate your time. This was great. Great job. I really appreciate it, Steve.
My pleasure. Anytime.
Thanks so much. Rangers pitcher Steve Dreyer. Until next week, happy collecting to all.